You know, 2016 was such a shit year, it even made all my romantic, like, slice of life animes fucking depressing as hell. Actually, that's really not entirely fair when I talk about Orange. Although, admittedly, this is another anime that, rather like Real Life, I didn't know anything about when I went into it and assumed it would be fun and light and happy, and decided instead to gut punch me every episode. The basic premise of Orange is that it's creating a fictional situation in which someone can not only ask a question, but try and achieve an answer. And sadly, this question is one that far too many people have to ask: what if I could have saved my friend from killing themselves? I, again, did not know this anime was gonna do that. It starts out with a high school student receiving a letter from herself 10 years in the future, and while she doesn't at first believe it, she starts to realize that the letters are usually pretty much coming true. And so she starts to realize, okay, this is real, this is weird, what's going on? From then on, Orange basically tells the story of our protagonist trying to save her new friend, who is said to commit suicide. Now, suicide is a really difficult topic. It's one I don't want to make jokes about, and I don't want to make jokes about this show. While this show certainly has some very fun and light and happy moments, it more often than not is a very emotional show. It's trying to very honestly and very sincerely show you the tragedy that ultimately leads people to commit suicide, and also how easy it is to mistake the signs that someone is really hurting. And it's really nobody's fault, because ultimately, this is a girl trying to save a boy who doesn't necessarily want to be saved. And that's the real tragedy. It would have been really easy for Orange to be very saccharine or maudlin, or really honestly not treat this topic with the right amount of gravitas and respect that it deserves. And yet it did. Throughout the entirety of the show, you never lost sight of the fact that this show knew it was talking about a very difficult topic, but didn't want to sound like a kind of cold and emotionless PSA. There's a tight balance there with tough topics, because you can go one end of the spectrum and have nobody believe you because they're like, this is ridiculous, or you go too far in the other end and everybody's like, this feels like I'm getting a lecture and there's no emotion to it. Orange managed to somehow find that perfect balance. The characters are all particularly likable, and what I like most is that actually one of the episodes spends about half of its runtime just giving you the point of view of the boy who wants to kill himself, and where his thought process is coming from. It shows you everything that leads to his decision to ride his bike out into the path of a truck. For the rest of the time, we don't get his point of view, and it's really difficult to try and figure out what's going on. And what I like is that, despite the fact, yes, these letters could have been something like a Deus Ex Machina, they're not, because sometimes our protagonist makes a mistake. She tries to correct something and says something instead that just makes things worse. This is what for me helped make the letters a little more like, okay, this is our one sort of sci-fi fantasy element, it's the whole reason we have a plot, but it didn't make them just a plot device that would ultimately tie everything up with a bow. And that to me was so important. If the story had just concluded and just tied everything up with a nice pretty bow and it had felt too easy, I would have been angry, quite frankly, at this anime. And yet it didn't. There's an ultimate struggle. Trying to save someone who doesn't want to be saved is a difficult task to undertake. And I will admit that sometimes the overly romantic angle to the series, I guess, could be seen as frustrating. For me, I didn't mind it so much, because ultimately, it's the entire friend group that's involved, and they're not all in love with this character. It's genuine friendship and bonding, meaning like, you're our friend, and we can't bear the thought of losing you. That is so, so great. And I think that the focus on friendship and the focus on not only healing, but the fact that healing takes time, and that you may think that, okay, good, we stopped this one thing, therefore they're better. No, that's not how it works. Dealing with essentially lack of self-worth and self-loathing, that takes time to deal with. In other words, it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. I won't go into any details about what happens with everything else because I think it's best to go to this knowing pretty much only what the basic idea of the plot is. It's important to experience everything as the characters do and to learn all of the revelations as the story goes on. I watched this in the English dub, which I thought was really quite good. I can't speak for the Japanese because honestly, after watching the show, I went, I don't think I could go through it again. I was crying so hard at the end of it. It was just sort of like, I can't emotionally go through this again, so we're just gonna leave it at that. If you're looking for something in the slice of life genre that, yeah, has a bit of the high school drama and romance, but really is much more hard-hitting in terms of its topic, definitely give Orange a watch. I understand that there was a movie released that tells the story from a different point of view than our protagonist, and apparently has an ending that flashes forward a bit, and I'm really curious. I have no idea where I can see that. Probably have to wait until it hits a streaming site. Please, oh please, oh please. So I can't speak for the Orange movie, but I will say that Orange as an anime was one that I really quite liked. It was very emotional. It was a bit of an ordeal, but I think that its sincerity and its honesty with its topic is what made it so memorable. It's definitely one that I won't forget. Whether or not it's one I'd go rewatch, I don't know, because it is so emotional, and I just went, that is it. It is emotional trauma for like the whole thing. But that's it for me today, you guys, and so until next time.
Can I be in the ridiculous race too? Not that I'm confident in my speed.
Cheers.